Welcome back to another episode of Amy and our monthly live book club. This month we were reading Feast While You Can by Mikaella Clements and Onjuli Datta.
Welcome back to
Before I
another
forget, let's introduce everyone. So with us today we have Abby,
Hello.
we've got Justina,
Hi.
we've got Harry,
Hi.
we've got Peyton.
Hey.
I'm Millie, and you will notice the absence of our fearless leader, Amy. She couldn't make it tonight, so we're gonna try and stay on topic and be
Let's
very
get Lucy
professional
Goosey.
and sound so intelligent the whole time, and we will finish on time, everything. Um,
Sure.
so
Yeah,
if one of my
she might be proud of
also
us, guys.
fearless comrades wouldn't mind reading out bio and blurb, or blurb and then bio, whichever you prefer.
I reckon let's start with the blurb. All right. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone here, um, everyone watching, if you've if you've joined us already, has read the book. But in case you haven't, um, this is Feast While You Can. There is a monster inside of Angelina Sicco. All she wants is to walk her mongrel dog, hold court with her brother in their local dive bar, and bait hot queer women to her sleepy conservative hometown, Cadence. The problem is, so does the monster. It wants what Angelina has done. It wants what she's going to do. It wants to eat her whole life and every version of every future she might have with it. Until it possessed her, the famous monster of Cadence lived deep in a pit inside the mountain. But on the night that Angelina runs into her brother's ex, the sternly handsome Jagvi, the monster rises, hungry and ready to eat. Its claws comb through her private thoughts, her most intimate and traumatic memories. Only Jagvi's touch repels it, and the monster feasts on all the mess that makes up a life. And Angelina Sicco's has never looked tastier. What will Angelina do to protect her future, and just how much will it cost her? And then there's a lot of great blurbs on the back here from authors who like it.
I think my favorite one is talking about how it's like a sexy queer horror.
Yeah, they're like,
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, that perfectly describes the book.
oh,
I like the
this
first
one's
one,
from Freya
messy
Marks.
lesbians.
This one, beautiful, greedy, and terrifying. This book makes an intimate home for itself right alongside your bones. That's great.
Oh, that's good.
Anyway,
That's a good one.
So Mikaella Clements and Onjuli Datta are the co-authors of The View Was Exhausting and Feast While You Can. Mikaela's writing has appeared in the New York Times, The Guardian, Hazlitt, Catapult, and more. And she was shortlisted for the 2019 Gailey Beggar Press Prize and the 2018 Bridport Short Story Prize. Onjuli's work has been published in The Billfold and The Daddy magazine. Mikaella is originally from Australia and Onjuli from England. They are married and live together in Berlin. And we interviewed them this month as well, which was so exciting.
That's right. Do
Yeah,
not
check
forget
out.
to listen to that because it's so interesting and so fun.
That was
I
the last
re-listened
week's
to it
episode,
after
right?
reading the book because the first time I listened to it, I hadn't
Mm.
finished the book yet. And going back and looking at it now, I was like, woof.
I feel like we have to address the elephant
Yeah,
in the
so for
room, or
those
the man
listening
with
later and not watching the YouTube video, we've all got some spooky backgrounds
Did
because it's
not see that.
Halloween.
Did not
Now,
see that. I was busy doing my professional
Peyton
duty.
has uploaded the image of a very spooky man. He's got little devil horns and a little devil tail, and he's sort of showing us his naked back and sort of flexing
And then
in a
something's
very
on fire.
enticing way, which is so
That's
appropriate
great.
for the lesbian book.
Okay, what's very funny as well is
enticing is an
that
interesting way of putting it.
I felt like
I
all
tried to
of
be
the
generous.
I felt like all of the ones of sexy women demons were objectifying. So
Oh,
So
when it's a
true.
man, it's okay.
it's
so
okay.
So
It doesn't
true.
matter.
I will admit that there is a slight delay on the YouTube live, and Justina and I are moderating, so I've got it up here, and I just clicked back to it after the bio just to see Peyton's thing pop up, and both Justina and Abby look directly at Peyton on the screen, while meanwhile Millie and I are like, oh yes, okay, carry on.
Yes,
And
let's get
Millie's
on with the
face
book
goes,
club.
Oh,
oh
Not sure about it.
yeah. You know what? I think that's spooky. What's on fire? We don't know.
Exactly.
His eyes are closed. He doesn't know.
I'd like to say a minute
That's
ago
right.
we said that we'd stay on track, we'd keep it professional because Amy wasn't
Right.
here.
Who made the snack and the drink?
Oh, I made neither, but I do have a snack and a drink. So I didn't have time to go to the shop. So I was rummaging around my cupboards looking for something I already had. And so I have this, which is like, I guess it's geez.
Vanished.
Espresso martini.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Because I had the
throwback.
stuff from when we did
from
espresso
us.
martinis for academia. And this
Those
was
tasted
That's
good.
fair.
this was the only chocolate I could find. I mean, no brands. They don't pay us. But it was like Fig Intense. That feels very horror,
Whoa.
and
Yeah.
horror romance as well. Like
Nice.
And I feel like a lot of
always, like-
horrors like have like fruits on the
Yeah,
covers too.
Yeah.
it looks a bit fleshy, that fig on the front.
yeah, it's like the
They're like
devouring and
pomegranates.
the
Yeah.
Mhm.
desire and etc. Forbidden fruit,
Yes.
etc. Yeah. So
I
that's
also did
I
a just sorry.
I was just gonna say that's my off-theme, on-theme snack.
I also did a Justina, and I didn't make the drink of the month and reused like, oh my gosh, green screen. There we go. I can influencer it. I also reused just alcohol I had from other drinks that we have made throughout the year. I wanted it to be red because it's got cranberry juice in it, and it turned out very pink. So I feel like that's the romance side of it.
That's
But
right.
it's just like
I've
vodka
got-
lemonade.
I've got pink lemonade, so
Yeah, that's
close
pretty much what I
enough.
made.
It's like very diluted blood.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
Mine is just plain lemonade, unfortunately.
Oh.
But
Not
I
even
do
any blood in it.
not even any blood in it. What's the point? I did sort of make the snack, but I just put chocolate on the popcorn. So
Oh,
looks
I'm so
amazing, though.
jealous.
The point of it is
Yeah,
really
it's
to
really
make it with
good.
all your like leftover Halloween candy, which A, we
Yeah.
don't really do here so much,
Yeah.
and B, it hasn't been Halloween yet. So it's more of like just put whatever you've got in your cupboard on it.
yes, I
It is
always have
very-
popcorn and chocolate. So
Very
it
funny
worked
to
out well.
Same.
that
Yeah.
only one of us drizzled chocolate over popcorn.
Yeah, I know.
Like the
The
easiest
levels of
snack
like
of the month. And Peyton's like, I did it, and we're all like, oh no,
Yeah, I was too busy for
that's
that.
a bit tricky.
I will say we're very much talking about we'll get into the book, I promise. But talking about Halloween in Australia and like horror in general in Australia in October, we're very much the kind of family where it's like turn all the lights off, move the cars, and hide in the front of the
Yeah,
house.
exactly the same.
We don't get trick-or-treaters now, like since COVID, it just hasn't been a thing at all. But we're very much do not answer the door.
When young
No.
families move into our area, sometimes we'll go, do you think they're going to be trick-or-treaters? And Dad goes, oh, I fucking hope not.
feel
We're
like
like
so
gates closed
cheerful.
kind of family.
I did it once as a kid, and that was fun. And like a couple of people did have candy, and one guy didn't have any candy, lollies, we call them here. He didn't have any, so he gave us a whole pack of cans of Sprite
Oh,
that we then had
perfect.
to. We're like 10. We're carrying around the neighborhood, like.
That used to be the
But it
best
was
part,
pretty
though.
good score.
I trick-or-treated a little bit when I lived up in the top of Western Australia because it was quite a remote town. And so everyone kind of knows everyone to an extent. And it's always like, oh, no one prepared for Halloween, but here's a pack of chips. Like, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah, a couple of muesli bars, whatever they've got in the cupboard. That's what my
Yeah.
mum would do.
I have only trick-or-treated once, and I was a kid, and me and my brothers wanted to go trick-or-treating, and my parents allowed us to go to one house, which was our grandma's house. So we walked to my grandma's house, and then she indulged us to have a trick-or-treating experience. But it's really not a thing in my area at all.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I think
just not
getting
really a
bigger,
thing
though.
here.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's getting bigger as the Americanization comes
I
across.
feel like what I see now is like the community notice boards on Facebook put out like these are the houses that accept trick-or-treaters. Like these are the houses to take your kids to.
Ah.
These are the people actually getting involved, which I
Mm.
think is nicer.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Who want you to
That's a
knock
good
on
way
their
to do
door.
it.
Yeah.
Kind of like,
old men coming out and being like, get off my lawn. Like you're cute
That's
little
the
kid.
spirit of Halloween, though, is it not?
Exactly. Monster House, a great film.
I love that movie so much.
I love that movie too. I'm
It's
also
so
just
sad.
drinking a glass of red wine. Oh, look.
Oh,
Oh,
And
yeah.
for
still
tonight's
thematically
topic-
appropriate.
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
Yeah, I felt like it was quite thematic. I was like, I'm not going to drink like a glass of Chardonnay or something like that. That doesn't seem very horror-y. Unless I'm the
No.
first victim to die in the movie. They
Mm.
tend to be drinking Chardonnay.
Oh.
So I was like,
Good
I'll
point.
open a nice bottle of red.
I was going to say a lot of
Lovely.
Halloween stuff doesn't seem to be really embraced in Australia, even like haunted houses, things like that. I don't know.
Mm,
I mean, but we make heaps of horror films. So I don't know. There's a interest
Yeah.
in horror, but it doesn't have that same, I don't know.
We just don't have
Mm.
that same history
Culture.
with the holiday, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. My mum was always like, we don't celebrate that here. That's American.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
more my favorite
Okay.
side.
It sure is. It sure is.
Why would I
That's what
teach my
Mama would
kids to knock
say.
on strangers' doors?
It's an American thing.
My mum is simply too Catholic. She was like, why would you mess around with spirits and demons?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you mess around with? Oh, I
Yeah,
got the green
literally.
screen too.
Ooh, mess around
With spirits
Mess
and
around.
demons.
Fool,
Speaking
fool
of,
around
mess
with
around.
the
Well,
devil.
what would we call this? Would we call it a demon, a spirit?
Oh,
It's
this is
the
a
thing.
great
Monster.
opening.
It's the
is
thing
what
from
they
the pit.
I
What do we
just,
take it as?
I think the thing/monster is a
Yeah.
thing, isn't it? Like it,
Mm.
I would go more
A
demon though than
category of its
spirit.
Yeah.
own.
I think it's a
Yeah.
demon because it has a physical manifestation almost.
Mm. I don't know. It in the book they refer to it most often as a monster, which
Mhm.
probably covers it. But I do find it interesting the way it like straddles between being kind of corporeal and more psychological or spiritual, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah. And because it had to get stronger too before it could
Mm.
have that real physical presence.
Yeah.
Mm.
I almost at the end was almost kind of not disappointed, but like I wanted to know more about it, like how it had said it had been there. Like it was like you're calling me old, but I've been here since the war. And I was like, what war? Tell me more
Yeah.
about you. How
Yeah,
did
and
you
like
get
the
down
scene
there?
where, by the way, anyone watching slash listening
Spoilers,
post or right
spoilers.
now, there will be spoilers.
Yeah.
That's what
You
book
read the
club's
book?
It's
for.
book club.
Yeah. The scene where it makes her body run up to the mountain
Yeah.
and
Mm.
it says I used to sit here. That sort of stuff. I'm like, okay, give me the lore.
Yeah. What does that
Well,
mean?
yeah, I felt when it mentions the war, it also mentions like spears and stuff. So there's the implication that it's like, oh, I've been here since the war, but this war could have been like hundreds and hundreds of years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Mm.
Family starts talking about like the Romans and the
Yeah.
peasants that settled and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, this is all really cool. I hope they dig into it and do some research and find out what the monster is. And then they sort of didn't.
Mm.
There's a kind of power in that ambiguity though in the end because it recenters the focus once that happens on the lasting effects that the monsters had. And I was kind of like, oh, this is so nice. Like me not being able to theorize at all about what I would do in this situation because I have just as much information as they do. And I was like, oh, there's kind of a
I also
something.
feel like there's a danger in over explaining a monster
Oh,
in
definitely.
in especially in horror because you need some of that complete like inexplicability to
Mm.
keep that sense of like fear. I don't know. I feel like I need a
Mm.
bit of unknown. Whereas when they start picking it apart and explaining too much of a monster, I stop being interested.
Mm.
No, I think that's a fair point. I think it's a bit like a magic system, you know.
Mm.
The more you get into it, the less it becomes that kind of fantasy and more becomes that kind of almost scientific
Mm.
kind of fantasy.
And then you always get to a point where, like, if you're, I mean, this is true of magic systems as well, when you're asking, oh, but how does that work? But how does that work? Where you have to just go, well, it's magic. Like,
Yeah.
so there's a point where you can't keep explaining it. It has to be something unexplainable because it is something otherworldly.
Mm.
Definitely. So I
This
sort of
is an
had to sit with
extremely
that
strong
and
drink, by the way.
oh no.
So we'll
Sip
see how
slowly.
this goes over the night.
By the end of the live.
Yeah.
She's like, you don't want to know what I really think.
I loved it. I thought it was a great book.
This
Oh,
is my
so
favorite
I-
book club that we have done, I will say, if I can
I
be
really enjoyed it.
pick
Yeah.
favorites.
Oh my gosh,
Why
I'm going
not?
to tell Amy.
Amy's not in the running because Amy
Yeah.
tops everyone. We know that.
It wouldn't
Or I
be
can say it
fair.
because Amy's not here.
Yeah.
Doubly true.
Abby's second favorite book of the month.
Yes.
Deep breath.
That's right.
Oh.
We're all looking off screen as if we're being held at gunpoint. No, we love Amy's books.
No,
I
we
do have
really
a
love them.
question for everyone. Because we've kind of discussed during the month the lines between horror and romance, and this is very much being marketed as a horror romance. And I would actually call this horror romance, even though I've been on the side of it's horror and romance not being certain books. But to me, this wasn't hugely scary. Like when I envision horror romance, I thought scarier than what this is.
Oh,
Thoughts?
It's a different type of horror, I think.
yeah.
It was a different type of, and it was completely different to what I expected, because I thought that at the end of the day there would be a bigger emphasis on the really creepy aspects of the creature, but there wasn't. So instead it was so psychological, and that was weird. Like that, and that took a while to get used to.
I thought it was scary, but to be honest, I don't tend to find books especially scary. Not that I've actually read an awful lot of horror, but I find like horror films scary in a way that books don't get me. But I love the I think it had that horror vibe to it though. Like there is like fear. I felt the fear in the book is really palpable. And to me, actually Riley touched on this a bit in their episode of the podcast, that they don't get scared by horror, but so the idea that horror is a genre where the affect is to make the reader scared didn't really work for them. And I'm like, in this instance, I agree. Like, to me, the horror of the situation and of the characters is really palpable, but I myself wasn't really scared.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Because I would argue this is definitely horror, despite myself not being afraid, having famously said on the pod, if it makes me scared, then it is scary.
Well, because there's two kinds of horror in the book, right? There's that existential horror of being eaten and your future being eaten and then not existing in the minds of people anymore. And then the other fear that I found quite palpable was Angel's fear of when she couldn't control her body. So when the thing had taken over her body, and it described her as being locked, and then like when it would speak for her and stuff, that felt very palpable to me. And extending from that, her fear of hurting other people via the thing. Not so much like, obviously she had that huge fear of hurting herself initially, but I feel like she kind of even moved past that into, oh no, now I'm going to start hurting other people as well. That felt very palpable to me. So it's
Yeah,
a different kind of fear, I think, different kind of horror.
there was that
I-
moment where she talks about how it's like kind of like she is breathing, but she's not, that like that's all that she's doing, and she's
Yeah,
getting sucked
or
further and further back into her body. And I'm like, oh, this is like, that's quite suffocating as a fear. Like I was like, I understand how this is like a bit
the
squirmy.
bit where it had taken her up the mountain, and she was describing had to she felt like she had to take that really big breath, and it just wouldn't. It kept her breathing steady. I was like,
Oh yeah.
the bit that I found scariest was when she's trying to prove to Jagvi that it's real. And then Jagvi doesn't notice when Angelina is no longer the one in control of her words and actions. And then there's
yeah,
that conversation they're having where she's in her own head being like, can't you tell that I'm not here? And it was like, yeah, that bit got me. That was creepy.
And
because we know that they're gonna be together, right? I feel like that's pretty obvious from the second chapter that it's the two of them, and there's that trope of like, well, your true love is gonna recognize that it's not you, and she just doesn't. She has no idea. Scary.
yeah, scary. And the idea that Angel never really knows when it's coming back. She knows kind of what stops it, but then that changes as well.
And
So
because it can possess other people and objects,
Oh.
that where it's
the dog.
like, oh no,
Oh, can we talk about the dog?
Oh,
can't
the minute that you do I say, what do I call the dog? Your
My dog.
Angel. The minute that
It's your
Angelina's
dog.
it's your dog, but that's what I'm saying. I can't say my dog, so do I say Angel's dog? The minute that her dog came onto the page, I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
You don't want a dog in a horror film. And then it starts
Yeah.
using the dog to speak, and I was like,
Yeah.
gone.
The whole
couldn't
scene, the
do
dog
it.
and like
Just thinking about
walking,
animals being confused by what's going on pains me so much.
Yeah.
it
You
actually
can't
made me
communicate
so
with them.
sad.
I was more
So
sad
sad.
in the moment where I was more sad about the dog being tethered in the yard, having no
Yeah.
idea, like, I
Yeah.
didn't do any
Why?
of this
Yeah.
stuff.
Or in the cage, because it's like this dog's just gone through a really traumatic event and they can't even like give
Yeah.
comfort because it's like could rip their throats out.
Oh,
Yeah.
At that point, I'd be like, just kill me. I'll give you a hug. You can take me. I don't
Yeah,
care.
truly. Actually, yes. If my
Truly.
pets got possessed by a demon, that would be my tipping point.
Yeah.
My
instantly.
cat is
Yeah.
possessed by a demon. I've just befriended it.
Peyton's cat is literally Beelzebub, so
Yeah.
Yeah, true, true.
True.
that's
Yeah, I'd be
Dane's
like, well,
thunder.
that's it. All of us into the pit. Off we go.
yeah,
Ooh.
get in the pit.
It is so interesting how different it is reading horror versus watching horror,
Yeah.
because it's like a completely different experience. But I guess like horror in film is quite new because film is new, whereas horror stories are like as old as time.
Yeah,
So it's
scary
interesting
stories.
to, yeah. I wonder how like oral horror stories also change the vibe as
Yeah,
well.
because
So it'd be
when I
different
was
again.
younger, I could not, because I'm not a horror fanatic in terms of like I cannot watch a horror film. I can't watch a PG rated horror film. I have nightmares. It's terrible. And when I was younger, I could not listen to like those horror stories you would like tell
Yes.
around campfires, if that's the vibe.
Yeah.
But I can read horror and not be scared by it. And so there is something
I
different
wonder if
about
it's
it.
because when you're reading, you can take it at your own pace.
Mm.
Whereas if
There's a
somebody
level
else
of
is giving you
control.
the story, you have no control over
Yeah,
Yeah,
when you
like
get
when
to the good
Angel
parts.
spots the monster for the first time in the mirror and then it changes
Mm.
chapter, I could close the book and be like, I will come back to that.
Yeah.
I'm going to process that for a while.
Yeah, that scared the shit out of me. Let me put that aside.
Or you can just kind of change how it looks in your head as opposed to it being like terrifying. You know, you're like, oh, it was probably just a flicker. Like it was just
I will say in the audiobook, the way the narrator reads the monster's voice is hot. So that
I said that to
It
Abby
is a little
before.
sexy. Yeah.
it's kind
So
of hot.
hot.
Off pod, Harry and I were discussing this because I said I listened to the interview that we did with the authors
Yeah.
and I didn't understand the sexy vibe of the monster. Like I didn't find the monster particularly appealing. Maybe because the characters were so sexy on their own.
Yeah.
But then Harry was saying, yeah, you know, the audio does it for you. And I was like,
There's
oh.
this
Oh.
roughness that's done in the audiobook to the voice. And as it gets stronger, they layer the sound
Yeah.
on top. And it was like headphones in, sitting doing something. You would just stop whatever you were doing whenever the monster was talking because it was so like audio, like oh, it was so satisfying. And
Need to
I was
listen
like,
to it.
this is kind of hot. Like I'm kind of getting the possessiveness thing.
Yeah,
I'd be
truly.
like, I don't
Yeah.
want to lose this thing.
Sorry, I
She
feel
was
like
a
I
great
must look
narrator
up who the
too
narrator
for
is.
the
Right,
audiobook.
narrator. Yeah, I was going to say, I
Really
want to find
good.
out who I'm meant to remember the name, but they were incredible. It
Keep
was
talking.
so-
I will look it up.
Narrated
Every time I come up
by-
with something I'd like to ask, I look at Peyton and I lose all thought because of the man behind Peyton on the screen.
You're protected from any demonic possession because your thoughts are consumed already.
They are,
There's no
yes,
space
That's
for
right.
demons.
Yeah.
Narrated by Jacqueline Kelso.
Yeah.
So
Jacqueline.
thank
Jacqueline
you.
Kelso, incredible
Yeah,
work.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the production value of that audiobook was so
Incredible.
good as well. It was
Mm.
amazing. Oh,
Mm.
I did think about how this would translate across to film when the dog was talking, and it's described that the dog obviously can't like keep up with like a human mouth pattern, so it's just kind of thing, but the voice was coming out. And I was like, I feel visually that would be less scary. It would be
It might be comical.
Yeah.
Well, there is the bit when the dog first starts talking. I mean, part of it is her sheer relief that Jagvi isn't hurt, but that she starts laughing in response. And then at first she's like, oh, it's like a cartoon character talking. And then
Yeah.
she's like, but I kind of found those moments really good because the monster was not like trying to keep her scared. And it was always, I think, a fun, like from a reader perspective, a fun turn whenever she starts to drop her guard and either get too confident or start laughing or whatever, and then something then flips that makes you realize that this monster is monstrous. Like when the dog then attacks her brother, and it's like, oh, that whole time before the dog attacked her brother, this monster's just playing around with you.
Yeah. Scary. I'm curious, when did people realize that who the monster was really after?
Late.
Oh, it was quite early for me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There were two
because that almost
moments.
like made it worse, I feel, for me. Like it clicked quite early on, maybe like the second time it was having her going through her memories about Jag. And I went, oh, hang on a second. And then like the whole book, I was just like, when are they gonna find out? Oh
Mm.
God. And I just feel like I almost wish I hadn't known
Yeah. You want
until
to
the
read
end.
through the book and you're like, it's not you.
It's not you, you're worrying about the wrong thing.
There were a couple moments
Um,
I think that hinted at it enough that I was like, oh, this is what's happening. And I cannot for the life of me recall. Thought about it before we went into this that I would wanted to bring it up. And I cannot recall the first one, but the second one was when the monster first communicates with Jagvi. And it says, oh, we're finally talking.
Mm.
And I was like,
yeah.
okay, yeah. But there was a moment earlier even than that where
For me,
it
was also quite late for me that I worked it out. It was more when we start learning about her mother and her dad. I was
Yeah,
like, oh, I see.
yeah, dad stuff. I
Yeah.
was and I think the scene just before it starts screaming at them in the room,
Mm.
the kitchen or something. I was like, oh, and
Oh, in
Patrick's
the
in the
mold
hospital.
of the in the walls or something when it's doing the text.
Yeah, when it's just before that they were in like they're in the kitchen or something, and she's
And
talking
it's
about
like not robbed.
yeah,
He was delicious or
yeah,
whatever.
and it's going back to she's like, oh, but all of that happened, so it needs to sleep. And like it won't be
Yeah.
here for a while. And then Jagvi started talking, and I was like, "Oh no, hang on a second, I
That
am
was
sick."
so Aussie of you.
Oh
Sorry.
no. Oh no.
The condensation.
Speaking
Cleo
speaking of,
of
um,
H2O.
in terms of setting, I listened to the interview post reading the book, and in the interview they talk about how it's set in Italy. And I would not have guessed that whatsoever. I was just picturing I don't know, it was more American in my head. Maybe that's because that's my experience film-wise. We're fed so much
Mm.
American, particularly of those like kind of ruddy, ugly towns,
Yeah,
where this is sort of set. And
For
I
me, it
knew it
was the
wasn't
mention, I
America
think
because of the names of the characters, but
one of them has a vineyard or something. Somebody brings wine, and I was like, oh, that's very Italian. And then I
mm,
remembered that thing because until that point, I had been picturing it in America. But then I remembered that thing that Amy said the other day about how um it was really obvious to her that it was set in Italy, but might not be obvious. But the authors often get comments of like, oh, I didn't know that this was set in Italy. And so I remembered I was like, oh, that's right. And all the mountains and stuff.
yeah,
That's right.
mountains
But I
was
had truly forgotten and thought I was like, oh, this is America. That's right. And I wonder if it's because we just see so much
I
set in
feel
America.
in my mind as well, because this is bad on my part that I don't read a lot of Australian fiction. So my default isn't even, oh, this is Australia. My default for everything is this is
Yeah.
American until I'm told otherwise, which is a lot to unpack in that. That's not for
Well,
book
we don't have
club.
time for that.
We don't have time
But
for that. But that's kind of where my
I get
brain
you.
goes.
Yeah.
I did like that you could place cadens really anywhere, regardless of where you lived, though.
Yeah.
So I could picture it as being somewhere that was out rural and probably be
yeah.
totally, and like it would still work as a story. If that's
There's a
not
level of like
condensed as.
insular small town with its own local
Mm.
mythologies
Yeah,
that is a little bit like you could be anywhere in the world. Like a
yeah,
lot of places have that vibe.
Yeah. With
Uh,
like their one pub and the one mechanic and
yeah. And
that
not in the way
stuff.
that it wasn't fleshed out, but just in the way that I was like, oh, I feel like I could place this in many. I did
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like it's a very universal thing, that small
yeah.
town
Yeah.
thing.
Which was intentional as well. So
And it
yeah.
worked really well. And I don't know, how did you imagine the pit? This is one of the things that I left like the book afterwards going like, I imagine it like this, but then we got to the end of the book and I was like, no, hang on a second. I feel like I'm picturing something completely different.
I
Like I
just
was like,
imagine deep in a cave and then the floor suddenly dropping off and you
Yeah,
can't
me
see
too.
anything.
big
Yeah.
hole.
Yeah,
Big
I was like,
hole.
a
No
big
bottom.
hole in the ground.
yeah. I don't know. I was like getting up there and the mountain and like where Jagvi lived. I was like thinking, whatever that weird movie is, Unfortunate Something, where the kids go to
Oh,
the
a series of unfortunate
series of
events.
unfortunate events. I was picturing Jagvi's house as like this one on stilts, like up in this mountain. And
What?
the way it like crashed down, I was like, it just seemed
You're
like
picturing a
impossible.
Queenslander. Like
Yeah. I was like, I was getting so many mixed vibes, and then I was trying to imagine what the pit would feel like, and I was like, but it's old, and it's not like I can't imagine they've just thrown this thing there. Surely there's like runes and stuff around there, and then there is a mention of there being like paintings or something like that on the cave walls, and I was like, okay, so maybe I'm picturing a little bit more ancient and a little bit more like slightly architectural,
You
but
know, every time
maybe I'm too
Architectural.
much.
Harry, it's a cave with a hole in
No,
it.
you're imagining a hole in the ground.
It's a cave with a hole in it. I don't know where you got architectural from.
Often the
I'm
holes in the ground are
imagining.
made by like tectonic movements or like
Yeah.
water
Yeah.
erosion. So it doesn't. I wasn't imagining a handmade hole. I was imagining a
But what
homegrown.
No
what
one's
I'm
in there carving
imagining,
out the walls.
No, I was getting like rune vibes.
what
Or
I'm
when-
imagining now that we've said the pit so many times is because I'm finna be in the pit. What's her name? Is it Brooke? Is her name Brooke or something? Because I'm just imagining her as the monster at the
pretty sure
bottom
it's
of
a
the
white
pit.
girl
Finna be in
name,
the
so
pit.
yeah.
I'm finna be in the pit, and everyone going, ah, you know.
My
I would not want her hanging over my shoulder, I
No.
must say.
Stay down there.
my very
Stay in the
millennial
pit.
reference is Parks and Rec when
Parks
there's like the pit and then he sings like the song and I fell in the pit. Now Angelina and Jagvi need to start like a band. Sing at the pub about the pit.
Sing about the pit. I mean, I liked that I didn't expect it to get into the horror so quick. So that's the end of that's how thick it is. Oh, you can't really tell because of my
Yeah.
stupid green screen. That's how thick this section is. And at the end of that chapter is where the pit goes, "Good joke," said the pit. "Thanks," thought Angelina. And I had to like pause the audiobook and go,
What?
I
"Oh
was
my God."
Anyone who's listening and needs the visual, it's like the bit that Millie was holding up was like a few millimeters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
literally
sorry for
like
those
8
listening.
pages.
Very short. It's the end of chapter 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And chapter 1 and 2 are very short.
Wild.
Oh,
So-
sorry, maybe chapter 3.
The other
But
thing
they're very short and it gets into it so quick. And I was like, "Oh, okay," because I didn't know anything about the book going in. I didn't really read the blurb and I haven't listened to anyone talk about it. So I was like, I don't actually know what the horror of the book is, except that it's got something to do with eating because of the title.
Mm.
So when they were like the pit and then the pit spoke to her, I was like, okay.
I did
I
multiple
was the
like
same.
listen backtracks on audiobook because the ending of these chapters were so good.
Yeah.
I was the same. I
You
don't
knew when
read-
you'd hit the end because it was like,
Oh,
What are you trying to say, Justina?
I was like, I don't read blurbs before I read books. So I went in also knowing basically nothing about it other than that it's a queer horror romance.
yes, lesbians.
Yeah.
That was
and
it.
when it opens with them telling horror stories, anytime any horror film, or not even horror film, anytime any film has characters tell a spooky story, I was like, you guys don't even realize that now it's gonna happen.
That's right. You've spoken it into being.
You've made
Why
it
would they write
happen.
you like this?
These characters don't even realize they're in a narrative.
I don't know you're in a book.
I really liked the community that they built around the myth and stuff though, with the Sicko women, and them being all like badass women, but with their own like troubles and problems and stuff. So that when it comes to the fact that she's been possessed, well, like possessed or consumed, that they're all like they've all got their different ways of showing up to support her. I was like, this is so funny that they built.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, go.
It
go.
did
No, I was
feel
gonna
like a
say, but
very
then there's a
real
level of-
family.
Yeah.
There's a level I felt of betrayal though, when you realize how many of her family actually know what's happening, but they're like so like, well, this is what happens. Now we just let it play out.
Yeah.
Like that they
Yeah,
are
when they're like, it's Angel or her, Jag. That bit when I think it's her uncle that says it, and I was just like, you bastard.
Yeah.
But of course, right? Like, of course they're going to prioritize her
Totally,
because
yeah.
she's their family. And that thing about the sickos being mostly boys and very, very few girls being born into the family, and so that's what makes them special. But like, you can tell that there is something wrong with Caro. Like you just
Caro.
like there's something wrong with this woman.
Hmm.
Something has happened here. Not just because she's flighty or all that sort of stuff, but just like, yeah, there were some points of description of her where I was just like, oh, what has happened here? There's something in the background of the mother that is going to come to light. And
Yeah,
that was such
actually,
an interesting reveal about how she had just hadn't even really thought about it and had given in to the monster, and spoilers, but thrown in her lover, I suppose. He wasn't a husband or anything. Um, but then you can't feel guilty about it because you don't remember that they existed. So there's
Mm.
a real horror to that too, a very existential horror of you've done this terrible thing, but
oh yeah.
you can't feel
Yeah.
guilty about
And
it
it's
because you
also
don't
Speaking of
remember it.
speaking of
I
Mm.
did
moments that were spooky, when they're asking her to describe him and she can't, and she gets more and more distressed, and then she's just
mm,
like, he was like nothing. That's what he was like.
mm.
It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is spooky. Yeah.
And that
And
moment
also,
until he speaks and says that, like, she can't do it because I took that, like I took it from her. But
mm,
there's that moment between there where Angel's like, my God, like, Kara, you're awful, like you're awful person. How
that's so
terrible.
mean.
That's shocking. Why aren't you? And the beast is
But
like,
no,
no,
no, she's literally got no
I did.
memories of him.
I
Yeah.
feel like the characterization in this novel was so good to talk to Kraft.
Mm.
Like I feel like the grip that they had on these characters was so insanely good that as someone who writes, I was very jealous. Like
Yeah.
I felt like the authors writing these characters knew them in and out so well, which is what you do as a
Yeah.
writer, but I was like, damn, I wish I could have that much. Like
And they
They're
were
so
so
specific.
distinct from each other.
Yeah.
And then to be
Yeah.
like, damn it, and you're married, and just like, God
Yeah.
damn it, and it's
And you're
co-written.
living in Berlin.
Yeah, you fuckers. Like,
How is any of that fair?
yeah, right. And
Mm.
damn stuff like this. Like, so unfair. It is
But
amazing.
One day.
to give credit to Own Voices books, I loved how unapologetically sexual it was. Because you know me, I have the gripe with lesbian smut books, and if we can call them that,
Mm.
because they're so cottagecore, we barely touch each other, and oh gosh, we're so giggly. Whereas this was just like, they have sex, they
It
do
was
it.
Yeah.
They do it. And
But
they
yeah,
talk
this book has
about,
really good sex scenes in it.
One
yeah,
of them's Butch, but like actually a
Yeah.
real Butch. I was so
Yeah.
strap-ons
excited.
and packers and
Yeah.
reclaiming a bunch of words that have been used derogatorily towards lesbians for decades. I was like, oh, there was so much beautiful queerness in this.
Yeah.
I completely agree. Own voice, like, just hit the ball out the park.
And also that tension between them of both being othered in different ways, except
Mm,
clearly having totally different experiences in the town, even though they're both they have shared experiences of being queer and being people of color. So
Mm.
then yeah, I found that really interesting because then it does that like representation in a way. I don't know. Sometimes I don't like talking about representation because I find it can be a really simplistic way of talking about books. But I did
mm,
like this was showing how depth and how individualized people's experiences are, even of the same places and people. And that's something that Angelina has to reckon with a lot, is reminding herself that her experiences in the town are not the same as Jagvi's.
yeah.
And then I don't know. Yeah, I found that really fascinating, and just that experience of being in this small town and then both desperately trying to find a queer community or build one out of from scratch.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that of their completely different experiences of the town, I loved that it didn't juxtapose them as this one's right, this one's wrong. They're both very true and very valid. They can love this town and hate this town. They can stay in this town or leave this town. They're both valid and correct.
Yeah, and the two different responses to it too, where Jagvi was like, I have to leave, I can't be here anymore. Whereas Angelina was very much about, I love that bit where she talks about bending the town to her will, because obviously that feeds into the stuff that happens at the end of the book as well. But talking about how she very carefully introduced queerness as a concept to the town so that when she was out, it wasn't so weird and people didn't make remarks to her anymore. And then at the end, I loved how that came full circle because now that Jagvi's living in the town, Angelina makes sure that no one's making remarks about Jag. I loved that as well.
Yeah.
I
That
also
kind of
felt
like
like
full circle thing.
yeah, on that same note, I love that both possessive and protectiveness of just the way Angelina functions. And as you read the book, you realize more and more how much of her behavior is this possessiveness. But like when she sort of realizes that, she's like, oh, has this been the thing I've been crafting? Is that even when there are people in the town who are more bigoted, they'll be like, oh, that's just one of Angelina's people. And it's like there's almost an ownership on that. Like she owns this thing and she's created a space where the, like, I don't know, her name and her existence is both a protective thing and a thing where it belongs to her.
Yeah, like speaking
That's
of
why
brought up, she says, I'm going to rule the town or something like, yeah, I'm going to bend it to my will. I'm going to rule it. And she's like, ha, 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 ha. And then she goes, no, genuinely, that's it.
yeah,
genuinely, this is number one on the gay agenda.
Yeah, she's like, they're literally sitting on like the porch swing or whatever it is. I think when they're in the city, and she's like, no shit. Like, that's my plan.
That is one good thing, one accurate thing about the queer experience in the book, is that the first item on the agenda is to take over everyone's towns and
exactly, and to indoctrinate people.
Just that's right. Yeah.
One queer night at a pub at a time.
I'll admit that I thought that the ending. So I really liked the way that the like second to last chapter ended, and I was like, oh, what a what a great way to stop the story, as is very typical of a horror book. But then that last chapter, like future, I think it was, obviously it counted up in the numerals, and then it went to future, and I was like, such an interesting idea as well, is to have one like totally named chapter. And then that was so, I'm not used to getting that kind of closure from a horror book.
I feel like that's the romance, right? Like it felt like here is the romance chapter that solidifies it as a romance because it has the happily ever after, which I would classify this as a happily ever after. I've looked at reviews since, as you do when you read a book.
Definitely.
And people say that it isn't, but
those people are boring.
Oh, really?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, people have gripes with the ending, and I don't understand why, because
but they're together
and they're happy, really happy. Yeah.
What else?
I was very satisfied with it. My only gripe was that I didn't love, although I got the vibe that he was going to come around, but I didn't love, because the relationship between Angel and her brother was so important to me throughout the whole novel. And I didn't love the way that it ended for them at the end, but I did get the understanding it was kind of going to come back together. But then Angel's also not really Angel fully anymore. I don't know.
Well, I feel like the read I got on that relationship at the end was that not just that Angel has sort of changed quite fundamentally, but also that her concept of time has changed, in that it doesn't feel as pressing that in this present moment their relationship is a bit tense, because the idea that at a future moment he will be okay again doesn't feel distant, because time is this compressed and layered thing to her now, because she eats futures, and like so it's
well, there you go. Now I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
I just need someone to talk me through it. We're all good. Not in a
Can I just say, by the way, while we're being silly,
listen to the audiobook, Abby.
I'm going to. I am going to.
I've loved watching Abby get more and more creepy. As
I know. We talked about this before we went live, that because I didn't have a light on, it's going to slowly get darker, but I didn't realize that the green screen was going to work on me less and less. So my outline has become like this wobbly.
We're just losing
black,
more and more.
I'm becoming the thing, you know?
Yeah,
you should just change her transparency throughout the whole thing and just gradually like fade off.
Just become a ghost.
Yeah, like...
I did consider turning my thing off so I could bring a light round, and I was like, are we too far gone?
I love it. It's really like,
yes.
Yeah.
You know?
You think you can outrun me?
Say it.
How long have you been 17?
On speaking to the ending, I think that, yes, you're right, Abby, in saying that I think that that's the romance portion of it that comes through clutch at the end there. But then also, it's so interesting to see the post effects of a horrifying situation on a couple given in such detail, because we go through a couple days. I think it's actually really long, the time span of that last chapter. I think
it's definitely not a couple days.
Yeah.
It feels way longer.
The
time feels kind of spooky wooky.
Yeah, yeah. I meant days as in like a lot of moments of those two together, and what happens in turn, like how it changes their relationship, and how Jagvi is just, kind of like so infatuated with Angelina, and this new form of Angelina that she kind of still recognizes and still loves wholeheartedly. And I was like, oh, when it ended, I was like, oh, I feel like I've got no questions unanswered. Like this is a really satisfying end to this book. Like I felt really like warm over it.
Well, I liked that it sort of, it does that balance, in my opinion, really well of horror and romance, because there is still like a horrifying element of the ending, but it is still, I think, a happy ending, and I still think a romantic one.
So this, like the idea of the feeding in the end, in that last chapter on each other, I was like, is one. The audiobook, again, I'm telling you, it's kind of sexy. Like it's kind of and she's like, have you got a week? And she's like, yeah, I'll take
You guys don't know, but I'm listening to it right now.
That's why her smile.
So I'm not really talking anymore.
Let us know when the monster makes a first appearance, Abby.
You'll notice.
Just skip to the end of the 3rd chapter. Just let us know what you think.
No, I don't think it would have been a satisfying ending if they just sort of neatly defeated every horrifying element and then just sort of ended up together and gone off and, I don't know, done something. Like, I think it needs the horror element to feel satisfying when it's a mix of both genres.
Agreed. If we'd gone to the sappy stuff afterwards, I don't think I would have been as satisfied. But
and also, I kind of forgot that it was a romance, actually, listening through it, because I was so focused on the horror and like, oh God, what's going to happen? So I forgot that there probably would be a happy ending. So when it got to the future chapter, I was like, thank God, actually. But there's bits throughout the book where Angelina talks about already having changed, and how the thing had lived inside her too long that she'd already started to change. So even at that point, I was like, oh my God, what's she gonna look like at the end? What is she gonna be? And I think it was honestly such a great ending for her. Like, I was actually so jazzed by her eating the thing and becoming the thing's replacement, sort of. I was like, this is so good.
There was a moment in that ending where I actually didn't, because I figured it would have to have a happy ending, but I really wasn't sure where it was going to go, where she turned around, and I'm really disappearing on the screen. It's actually insane. If you're not watching this visually, I am disappearing.
If you're listening, please picture Abby like fading into the woods and being like eaten by fog.
I was trying not to laugh.
Actually crazy. Oh my God. It's getting worse even now as I talk.
When you started, it was
disappearing into the forest.
What was I even saying now?
Too much, Abby.
There's a moment there at the edge of the pit. I'm going to try really hard to work through this. There's a moment there at the edge of the pit where Angel kind of finally gains control, but turns around and starts devouring Jag. And I was like, oh God. I thought that we were going to pivot now, but it's just gotten worse. And like the people who were watching this are also reacting, and like her brother is horrified, which is part of why he kind of needs to distance himself, I think, because he's like, I saw you turn around.
I saw you try to eat my best friend.
Yeah.
Because we talked with Riley in their episode with us about how the queer happy ending for queer horror-mance doesn't have to look like everybody else's happy ending, and it can be that they both end up being monsters, or actually they both die, but that's okay because it's still happy. So with that in mind, I got to that bit where she turns and then starts to eat Jag, and I was like, oh no, it's going to be one of those endings.
I thought it was going to be a double pitfall, to be honest. I thought both.
Yeah, like she was going to take her into the pit with her or something.
But
all in all, a pretty happy ending, actually.
Yeah.
Actually,
well, I mean, I feel like that thematically and like symbolically, the idea of monstrousness is so like intertwined with queerness in a lot of ways, and also with like blackness and brownness in a lot of these horror narratives. So having an ending where she really embraces her monstrousness and is empowered by it is something that I thought was like, there's something almost like what's positive Schadenfreude? Like you feel like emboldened by reading this, like, hell yeah. I'm exactly as awful as you say I am. And watch out.
It just sounded like a really sick set of powers.
Yeah.
At the end. Like I was like, wow, she's got this down to the bone. Like she knows exactly how to use them, use the gifts. It was
She's
impressive.
thriving.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
thriving. And like, you know what? Maybe was it a good trade-off? I think so.
Yeah, she's
Yeah,
the perfect person to end up that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. Especially because she's quite satisfied, I think, living in the town and being with Jagvi. That like
Mm.
if she was dissatisfied with those things, it would probably be a lot more worrying.
Yeah, yeah, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nowhere near
Yeah.
as happy.
Yeah.
She was
What's
still
this?
hungry,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh,
But
I knew how to feed her. I knew how to look after her. Some days she was really good. Other days, well, she wasn't great. But like, I still love her, and like the idea of her walking up and down the boundary of the town as well while she waits for Jagvi. Like,
Yes.
Yeah, that was
yeah.
I was like, this is oddly cute. Like, this is
Yeah.
really sweet. Like, she's like, I just I can't go past there, so I'll just stay here. And I was
Yeah,
like, oh, I don't know. I'm
just
finding this
imagine
really heartwarming, even though this is really fucked up.
yes.
Hmm.
Just imagine returning home to your little monster, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
arguably, if you started the book at the last chapter, it becomes an entirely different romance.
Very true.
Huh.
That is a
I
genre.
suppose so.
Hmm.
Perhaps
And
I'll do
who's
that.
going to write that one? I wonder. Abby? Someone?
Maybe I'll listen to the audiobook back to front next time.
Yeah.
I want to know, and this is me now selfishly thinking into my thesis research, like what are the queer elements of this like romance that you think could be like brought into romance generally? Like, I know there are a lot
Mm.
of queer romances, and we've talked before about how some of them feel like they're just following a set of conventions, and some of them actually seem like they're trying to push back against things. Yeah, like what is something from this book that you would want to read more of in other books, whether it's in a horror romance or just a regular romance or just a regular horror?
Maybe imperfect characters, but not in a imperfect, like, oh, I'm happy with the ending of this story in spite of their imperfections, but really liking the imperfections, like liking the
Mm.
monstrosity of Angel at the end.
I was going to
I
say
I
more give
dig
and
that.
take, which aligns, I think, with what you're saying. Like, I would like to see more romantic couples that are equal with the give and take. Because I found that both of them were very different, but they were very equal in the relationship. They were both offering very different things to each other, and it just worked based on the fact that they had a history of attraction for each other. But
Mm.
then it wasn't necessarily like the right like moment that made them fall in love, because they didn't both of them didn't realize what the thing was after. So I was like, I don't know, there was something nice about seeing, which I think ties into what Peyton's saying about the imperfections. They both seemed equal in what they were offering and what they were giving, what they were receiving from each other, which I really liked. And that carried through from the moment that it was obvious that they were going to be together, like chapter 5, all the way through to the end, where there were moments where one was giving far more than the other, and one was doing more protecting the other. But then in these moments of crisis, they were both like right on for each other as
Yeah.
well. There was
Like by the
nothing.
end of the novel, they both kind of have their needs met in terms of their boundaries with each other and with the town kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, is that what you mean? Like, yeah,
Yeah,
Angel
and with the
kind of knows
family
best.
and like the history of Jag with the town, and then Angel's I like thoughts about the town, you would think that, well, I would make the assumption that if I was to read this in another type of romance, in a contemporary romance, that it would just wouldn't sit kind of right with
Yeah.
me.
Like
She had
one would
decided to stay in the town that he didn't like.
yeah, they would have to like pick one or the other,
Yeah.
and the novel would try to explain away anyone's discontent with
Yeah.
like, oh no, actually now she's happy to be in this town that she's
Yeah.
hated her whole
I
life kind of
was I
thing.
was
Yeah.
I never felt like Jag was sad that she had to stay in Cadence.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the give and take of both
I
of them.
think as well, and I think this is something that you guys have spoken about, which is where I'm picking it up from. But I also think that in general, this book didn't feel like it was trying to create the perfect representation of what queer was.
Mm.
And I think that often when I'm reading a queer romance, like particularly contemporary queer romance, it feels like it's spoon feeding me like this is good representation, which feel free to disagree with me there. But this book didn't feel like it was doing that. It was just
Yeah.
these characters were queer, and that was that. I don't know. There was something in it that
These
didn't
little,
feel.
I've got tags. They're actually only bits that I've tagged where they've put in little bits of like queer and lesbian culture that I really enjoyed and like was like, ah, yes, I know about that one. But it didn't feel like you said force-fed. I feel
Yeah.
like in a lot of contemporary queer romances, it's almost like it feels almost like name dropping, but you're doing it with culture to be like, get it? Because I'm in the queer community or
And
I'm in the lesbian
occasionally,
community. And it feels very like, here's your culture, take it, spoon
Yeah.
fed.
or
Whereas this was
occasionally
just
like
like,
a PSA segment where they're like, and
yeah,
of course,
exactly.
gender can be blah 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 blah. Yeah, there's like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas
They
this
just
just felt
signpost
very
things.
natural. And they've just
They feel like
really,
real people. Not that the other characters
yeah.
in the other contemporary queer
Yeah.
romances don't
Yeah.
feel that way. But I feel like there's something about then removing it from like and I don't want to speak to it, but if I speak wrong, let me know. I feel like we should have more queer representation within other genres, like it's doing here, and queer romance within other genres, rather than just queer romance as queer romance, because
Agreed.
Mm.
adding the horror aspect maybe helped in that regard.
I
Yeah.
agree. I feel like the horror gives permission for that imperfection and for the messiness. And like Harry, when you were talking about like them being equals, I think one thing that struck out to me is that they're both actually very possessive and jealous
Yeah.
people.
Mm.
But that isn't played as like something they have to overcome. It's almost like something that makes them able to resist this monster because they're like two freaks who are obsessed with each other, which
Yeah,
is
so
my
obsessed with
favorite
each other.
dynamic in any romance.
And it
Yeah,
really
People
it
obsessed with each
reminds
other.
me of Gideon in the Ninth in the way that Gideon in the Ninth isn't a romance specifically, it's like a big sci-fi romp, but they are lesbians.
Yeah.
And like
Yes.
it's doing something very similar, I feel, in the joining of romantic elements and sci-fi.
Because it meant that
Yes.
those moments that would have been dumb in a cliche sense, like were the furthest thing from it. Like like Angel telling Jagvi to stay away when she's possessed because like I'm gonna fucking eat you. And then there's like and countless other moments throughout the novel where she's just like, shut up, I'm gonna do it. Like, shut up, this is happening. And it wasn't like a like ooh da boo da boo. Like it wasn't like a little like you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like a little like bubba bubba like squish squish kind of like vibe. It was just like no, they felt like real people. She was like, shut
Yeah.
the fuck up. This is gonna happen. I'm gonna do this right now. We're in danger. We're just gonna get it done. Okay. And I was like, oh, this is like they're in love. Like this is
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
It felt really real.
Yeah,
Trust
it's
the
that like I
lesbians
love
to
you
get
so
shit
much that I
done,
want to
you
like
know?
crawl into your rib cage and live there.
And
I'm
live
like,
there, yeah.
yes, it's
But then
true
they
love.
did
I
things
love it.
like mention like packers. Like I didn't know what a packer was before I read this book, so I had to look it up. But it wasn't like they were like, this is a packer. Like Angel wasn't like she wasn't turning to the screen being like, now it's time to explain to you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Which they do. So many gay books are like
They
now
do.
little
It's so
one-on-one on
bad.
dildos. And you're like,
I had that.
it was
I
just like,
had that marked
there's
down.
her packer. Like her packer was obvious in her pants as she was making me like breakfast. And it was like, then there was a throwaway line about, there was a line about, loved Jagvi's dick, even through all of its variations. And it's just like, you know, like that's just how it, and then a line about how, well, I think it was like, what do straight women do when they find
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and it was like, are they stuck with it? Like that
Yes.
They have
sounds
to live with one size
with
forever.
one
Yeah.
side. Yeah. What if they
So
don't like
funny.
it? And I was like, all of these lines were just so beautifully queer. And
It
you're
was
right.
great. It felt like conversations I have with my friends.
Yes.
Mm.
And
Which is, yeah.
I was reading and I went like, oh, okay, a packer is obviously like, I think that's what this is, but I'm interested. So I was like, oh, okay, that's what a packer is. Cool. But I don't
Yeah.
need to learn that from the book. I should be able to just Google it if I want to. You don't need to tell me what it is. And if
It-
they had,
Yeah.
it probably wouldn't have been as impactful. So
It feels like
Impact.
I was
maybe
going to
the
make that
kinds of-
joke and then I was like, I'll let it go.
Never.
It feels like the kinds of books that we're talking about or that Abby was talking about before, it's like some of them talk to you too much, whereas this one is just immersive. Like it just lets you
Yeah.
in rather than
Yeah.
addresses you all the time.
Doesn't
Like
treat
you're
you like an idiot.
yeah.
Like if you
Yeah.
don't know what something is, Google it.
And it's so much more,
but-
I mean, I don't want to like talk down on any other style of writing, but I personally just find this so much more interesting. You know, like I enjoy books when the representation, again, like that word feels so reductive, but when it's just like this, it's just
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
As
immersive,
always,
just-
we've hit on the very deep, interesting points right as we have to wrap up.
Yeah, we're good like that.
So thank you to anyone who tuned in and to anyone who's listening later. Thank you to everyone for joining us. Justina, Harry, Peyton, Abby, me. And tune in next week. Watch our Instagram. We will tell you what the book of the month is for next month, but we'll next week. So look out for that. And we should have an After Dark episode up next week as well, all about horror again.
A
because
bonus.
the spooky month
Episode.
Everyone take one last look at Peyton's background as we say goodbye.
If you're in audio, you've got to take a second to go to YouTube to look at the
Yeah.
Take a
background.
second, just really quickly look. Just scan through the time, just
So
real fast.
Abby is visible
Yes.
again for those playing at
Phenomenal.
home.
Yes,
Am I
I
able-
put a light on.
Am I
Yeah.
able to do a quick screen
Everyone
grab
have a
of
happy
Peyton?